Welcome to the Au Jus. I'm your host, BeefLoaf. This show is being powered by From the 108 and FromThe108.com, where you can get all of our content top to bottom, blogs, podcasts, and videos, including the world-famous Sunday Soak, which we just did yesterday. You can get all of our merch there as well, including the infamous Wave Sucks and hashtag 108 in Garbs. Currently, we have a Wake Me for the Parade koozie selling at FromThe108.com. It's $5. Go get one, go get 10 if you like that sort of thing. Those things never go out of style. This show is powered by you, the loyal 108 supporter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to tickle the undercarriage in the process. Like, comment, turn on notifications, and most definitely super chat, because that's how we get paid, and that's how we continue to make the content you know and love. Tonight's guest. He's the host of the 108 podcast and one-third of the power trio that makes up From the 108. He's also the host of From the South Side Point of View, which reviews any and all Star Wars content. Chorizy-E, welcome back to the Au Jus, my friend.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for showing up. You're taking Unprotected Sock's spot. You're my fourth choice for this week's show. I tried to get 3 different guests. None of them could commit. I said, Chorizy, you bail me out, and you are bailing me out today, so I really appreciate that.
Man, I'm happy to do it. Happy to do it. I was, usually this is my practice night, but we're recording right now, so I'm done recording. That's one of the best things about playing bass is like,
yeah,
you're early in the process, and then there's like a couple weeks where you just drink, and then wait till everybody else is done.
Well, how does that work? Is it drums first?
Drums, bass,
drums, bass, and then the
depending on which guitar's doing more leads. The guy who's playing more rhythms usually goes next for us. That's the way we do it.
That sounds good. Senior Sox says, "Oh wow, great get, Loaf. This is huge." Yeah, it is huge actually. I've been wanting to talk to Chorizy, talk little Sox. We don't do it as much on the 108 podcast. That we get into some hijinks there. So there's a little more straightforward talk here. But before we get into all that, I kind of want to go down the content vein a little bit. I've been doing that a bunch with guests. People who make their own stuff and just discussing some of the things that people do to make things. And Chorizy, we have an ethos because we do live streams. So we're one of the few, there's a handful out there of the Sox ones that do live streams and do live streams consistently. I'd love to hear your thoughts on live streams and why we consider them almost like concerts, performance art.
Yeah, I mean, so I think if we go back to when we started From the 108, right? Like what we were trying to do was give you in a blog form, give you a representation of what we did, what was going on at the stadium, how things transpired in those seats, right?
Yep.
And so when we started doing more and more of that, and then we said, okay, we're going to do a podcast. I remember having this conversation with you, and the first thing I said is, and this was not out of laziness. I assure you, I was like, we are not editing it. I was like, you and I are both big Steve Albini fans, and it's like his ethos around recording is like, it has to be a representation of the live show, right? So like,
yep.
If we were going to do a podcast, we wanted it to feel like you were sitting with us, having the drinks, talking baseball, talking beer, talking bullshit. Yep. And like, so that was when we came up with the podcast, we're like, I'm not editing. I'm just not editing it. If we say something stupid, we said something stupid. We got to live with what we said, right? Yeah. Like, I'm, and there's a million of them too. I was actually laughing a couple weeks ago. Nathan Shiba was in the comments and he was mentioning like the at the end of the 3-hour shows, like the slurring Chorizy. I shit you not. I put something up on May the 4th and it was just like a little video of me opening some Star Wars cards, and I put a track behind it, and it was this band Galactic Empire. And someone commented, we're like, hey, this is a really cool song, and I was like, oh, I definitely blogged this. So I went and looked, and I blogged it, and it was an excerpt of us from the show. And this is like hour 3, me talking about this band. It is incoherent. And I still was like, you know what? I'm putting it up because that's experience what I was experiencing at that point, So yeah, I mean, to me, and the live stream, once we were able to do that, to me, that was really when I was like, okay, we're doing exactly what we want to do. This is how we want to do this. We want the comments flying in during it, being able to interact. Like, that is how I wanted it to go. I want it to be like I'm playing in a band and, the drummer speeds up for some reason, or someone breaks a string, or someone plays the wrong thing, and you've got to react and you've got to play it. It's going to be different every time. And that's why, like, just to me, doing something live is so much better. It's authentic. It's in the moment. You have all the reactions that you would, even if it's rehearsed, right? Like, even if we know all the topics we're going to talk about, someone's going to say something that's going to spin you off into a different direction, and you're going to do things that you weren't expecting to do. And that's where, to me, the real, kind of fun of it is what you really want to get out of an experience with other people talking about something you love.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love that thought process there too, because you gotta know what you're gonna get into, and then when it does spiral off, we always leave room in our show for the creativity. If it goes off in a direction, let's just go with it. Let's just have it land somewhere else if we're really entertained by it. But the instant feedback from the commenters is always great. Not only the collaboration of them, talking about whatever topic we're talking about, but I can tell when they really like something that we're doing, a bit that we're trying, or when they think it sucks. And that's the most important feedback. We have a guest on, and I can tell from the comments if the commenters like the guest or not. And sometimes they really like them, and sometimes they fucking hate the guest, and they don't want it. Sometimes they like a bit. Sometimes this bit sucks, and you get instant feedback from it. You're not sitting there checking download numbers, trying to determine it from there. You get the reaction from the people that we know and love there.
If any of you motherfuckers talk shit about tonight's guest, I'm coming for you. I'm coming. I'll go over to whatever section you sit in. I'll fuck with you.
Beat your ass. One thing I want to get in before we get into the White Sox talk, Doyle Brunson passed away yesterday. He was 89 years old. I pulled out my copy of Super System. This book is 45 years old. It's basically was released the year I was born or the year after. It's still a great poker tome. You could read this right now, become competent, and kick everyone's ass in your home game. It's aged so well. I would consider it's it's the best how-to book that's ever been created. So I wanted to say R.I.P. to Doyle Brunson. But what also made me think about Chorizy is we have extensive gambling backgrounds. We made some of our living gambling over the last few years. And I was thinking about the marriage of gambling theory with baseball analysis and how we take ample advantage of this that almost no one else seems to. I think that's our leg up when it comes to analyzing stuff. You ever find it weird that the baseball analyzing people, they stay away from gambling? It's almost like they're afraid of it. I love that we do it, and almost no one else kind of has that background and is kind of doing analysis that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, in gambling, especially in sports gambling, if you're putting money down, you're wrong 50-something% of the time, 52% of the time or whatever it is, which is how gambling just overall works, right? You're right a lot. You get the right answer a lot of times, 48% of the time or whatever it is, but you're paying the juice, so you're always digging yourself a hole.
Yeah.
But so I think that's why people stay away from it. It's there's a lack of certainty in what's going to happen. So why would you talk about that? Why would you put it out there that, when you're going to be wrong 52% of the time, right? Yeah. I don't care about being wrong.
Yeah.
We're all wrong a lot of the times. A lot of the things that happen in your life, you were wrong about, right?
Yes.
Your spouse will tell you this immediately. So just if you feel like you're right about a lot of shit, go ask your spouse. It's that you're not.
Yeah, Mrs. Beef and I bought our condo in 2004. And then we lost our ass on that condo. I had to cut a check for $40,000 when we sold it. I've told this story to other people around there. Look, everyone always claims they make money on houses. I lost my ass on my first house. I got absolutely crushed. You make mistakes. Shit happens.
But I think, Beef, one of my favorite things about Brunson, though, is, and I had to look it up to make sure that I had this story right, because this story has just always kind of stuck with me, and it's a good indication of, how different the world has become over the years. So, this is in the early 70s. He was in the World Series of Poker. It was the second or third year. And there was only 4 guys left. And they all were sitting around having coffee. And they were deciding who was going to win. And the reason they were doing this was because one of the guys was already, it might have been Hammerless Slim, was already bought up. People bought into him at 200%. So if he won, he owed more than he actually won.
Yes.
And then there was Brunson and another guy were like, we don't want to win. We don't want the notoriety because we want to be able to still kill and cash games.
Right.
So
Yeah,
they
that's
like
where the real money was made. Yeah.
on this one dude, and it's like, could you imagine like the scenario where like the world doesn't know who Doyle Brunson is enough that like he could go still clean up cash games.
Yeah.
The big prize of the World Series of Poker is actually looked at by 3 of the 4 guys as a detriment to their income. Like it was just like such a wild
Different
thing
time.
to try and process. And I think, you know, I think it goes to a little bit to what you're saying is like, you know, like the way people look at gambling and the way that people take gambling content as being part of this actual sport is still a little bit uncertain. It's a little bit like, that's not part of what I watch sports for, you know, like that's the dirty side of sports.
It's dirty.
Look, man, there is absolutely a dirty side to that. But I think if you're just like looking at it and saying like, I'm going to take this piece of information from here and say like, okay, everyone in Vegas believes this. Why are we all seeing something else? Why are we thinking something else? And you try and understand that. I think that's a very valid way to analyze something.
Yeah, 100%. And there's something pure about putting money on something, making a bet against someone else about a particular position, something you think about something. Too much you see out there, people who do takes, they got wishy-washy takes. They'll take both sides of it in some angle. This way they can always claim they're right. They always can slide over to I was right. Look how smart and right I was about this. But if you put money down on it, you really there's no leeway. There's nowhere to go. It's either you won the bet or you did not win the bet. There is no like, oh, I'm going to slide over here like I'm an academic and just have both sides of every argument so I can always win, you know?
I will say this. If you're trying to build up to some kind of food bet, I'm not in. That's you and Josh. You and Josh Nelson, you could have those bets. I'm not in on those.
I got him easy. He's going to need a fucking miracle with this Elvis Andrus shit. I'm just going to say that. We're not going to talk about Elvis Andrus, though. We're going to move on to the White Sox right now. I want to run through 8 questions, Chorizy. These are just things that are on my mind. I floated them out there, too, so hopefully you had a minute or two to think about them a little bit. The first question for me is, Pedro Grifol recently had a closed-door meeting heading into this Astros series. He was pretty disappointed about the White Sox results in Kansas City, maybe preparation and results, whatever. And then he's been thrown out of a handful of games in recent memory. So my question for you is, are we seeing any signs of improvement from the skipper at this point?
So, not from any of this shit, right? Like the closed door meeting, like that's meaningless, man. Like, I mean, just like, I'm sure like teams have closed door meetings all the time and they just don't make a big thing about it because the team's not sucking, right? Like there's just like, so I don't really buy into that being a thing. The getting kicked out of games, I mean, it at least shows that he's awake, right? So better than the last guy. But I think where I'm maybe seeing some signs of improvement, and it might just be me trying to be optimistic about it, is that it seems the second time he gets a crack at a team, it looks better. Like he looked better against the Twins.
Yep.
The Rays are kind of a flip-flop because like he had a couple games in there in the second series against the Rays where you're like, oh, they look good, even though they lost all of them.
Right.
They look good. Or they won one of them, I think.
No, the series in Tampa, they got swept. But they lost the first 2 games by 1 run each. Those were real tight games. And then in Game 3, they only lost by a couple. But
the Twin series, that was the second series, they looked good in that one.
Yep.
Then you had this past weekend, the Astros, it was the second series against them. And they looked good. Like, they didn't win the series, but the Astros are a much better team at this point, even though the Astros are underperforming.
Yeah, they're hurting a little bit.
I think that, like, it seems like the more he sees of managers doing or what the players have to, you know, he can react to it a little bit better.
Yeah.
But that's fucking terrible at the same time because it's like you have all this footage, you have all of this information, right? Like you were supposed to be a guy who's like new age, listens to all the analytics, has an understanding of all this, and is going to prepare well. I mean, they made such a big thing about preparation, and it's like, dude, it takes 2 times seeing a team to react to them. Like, that's not good. That's a slow reaction time, especially with a balanced schedule now, right? Like, so it's a little worrisome, but it's also, I'm a little optimistic that it seems like maybe he's learning, Like maybe he's learning on the job. Maybe he's getting better at what he's doing. I think there's still some questionable things that he does with lineups, with his bullpen, with how long he sticks with certain pitchers or doesn't stick with them.
Yeah.
There's some of that, but there seems to be moments where I'm like, this looks like he learned a lesson, and this is getting better. So I'm hopeful in that sense. Long way to go. Long way.
It still feels like it, right? It feels like to me there is a more of a level of urgency, but how could there not be when you're 14-28, when you're 14 games under 500 in the first quarter of the season? How could you not be feeling urgent or thinking you really need to do something there? I did note maybe about 10 to 12 games ago, he started managing a little more with his hair on fire, like really trying to capitalize on situations. He caught a lot of stuff from the Twitterverse because he would run for guys kind of early in games, or he'd make the defensive substitution earlier in games. I didn't mind the aggression, but I agree with you, Chorizy. I think that's him kind of learning on the job. Okay, this roster just doesn't have it. We're going to need to press these small edges and maybe try to do this. Hasn't always worked out for him. Kind of things just haven't been working great for him. And I think you're right. I think the bullpen improving on its own, kind of pitching a little better, makes him look a little better. But I'm still confused sometimes as to what he's doing when he pulls it out. When I think to myself, well, that guy's been one of your best three relievers. You didn't use him this inning when we really could have used one of our better guys. And then he comes out the next inning when there's no stakes. And it's like, man, it's kind of weird.
You've also got scenarios where he's pitching guys that you were like, okay, this guy I'm very confident in, but he's in an 8-run game. And then the next night when you need him, it's like he's unavailable. Put someone else in.
Right, can't use him.
Like that's bad, right? That's the things that you need to see him stop doing, right? You need to see him learn from that. But Beef, we gave Tony the same benefit of the doubt the first year that he was here, and we were like, he hasn't been in the game for a while. He's relearning some of this stuff, and we said, let's see how it plays out over the year. He had a much better start because Yerman Mercedes was out of his mind, but like, but I think we got to see what does Pedro look like in the rest of May into June, and see is he getting better. Because it looks like he might be improving. I'm hopeful that he is.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. Next up, I want to talk about Romy Gonzalez. I went all the way back to your birthday. I went all the way back to your birthday last year because that's when Miguel Cairo kind of took over the roster. At the point that he took over the roster, he decided, Lurie Garcia, you're not going to play. Lurie had been banged up all year and been highly ineffective, so he shelved him, put him on the bench. He decided Romy Gonzalez was going to play, and he played Romy Gonzalez pretty solidly through. Now, Romy's position on this roster has been a little more utility man. But going all the way back then, I see 117 plate appearances for Romy Gonzalez going back to your birthday in 2022. He has a 0.0. I wanted to stress the 0.0% walk rate. That's no walks. Absolutely no walks in 117 plate appearances. That's 40.2% K rate. He's slashing 207, 214, 310. Chorizy-E, why is Romy Gonzalez even here?
I don't know. I honestly, I was thinking about this question because you sent me the questions earlier, and I was like, maybe it's because Lenyn Sosa has been so bad, right? Lenyn Sosa has like a 336 OPS right now, right, which is atrocious. And I was like, well, Romy's got to have a. Nope, he doesn't. He's got a worse OPS somehow.
Worse. Yes.
Somehow he's worse. He's just off an injury.
Yep.
And when he comes up here, they don't play him. So I could only think that it was like, and I don't believe this is the case. Like, I know they just sent Sosa down, and there's usually like the 10 days, but I believe that gets wiped out if there's an injury, which there was. Andrews was injured, put on the IL, and I think you could have brought Sosa back up.
Yeah,
and it's even stranger when you bring up Romy, like, hey, this guy's our backup infielder now. And you put Hanser Alberto at second base. Like, Alberto's been hitting okay, but like, it's still like, then why is he here? Why? What are you doing? What are you doing with this guy? What is he here for? Like, I don't get what he is. And it just seems like it's either Rick Hahn or Pedro Grifol going like, I said this guy was going to be good. Right. And God damn it, we're going to keep him on the roster until he's good. And it's That's a dangerous game to play because we've seen plenty of guys be terrible for their whole career.
Yeah, yes, exactly. He's shown no real flashes in the majors of being good. And the way Pedro likes to run his roster, we've got 42 games now of Pedro Grifol, and we know that at least with this group, he likes to go deep into the roster. He will use guys late in games in any spot. There's no spot to use Romy Gonzalez late in the game. When they pinch hit last night, or yesterday afternoon, you can't use Romy Gonzalez to pinch hit for anybody on this roster. I mean, even someone who is struggling, like Sebi Zavala, I'm not putting Romy in for him to hit there. There's really not a defensive position where he's an ace, where he's going to help you out a ton. Like, I don't know that I even trust him in right field over Gavin Sheets. I know he's more athletic, but I'm not sure he's a better outfielder at this point. It's like, it's weird because he doesn't fit the roster at all.
We saw him drop a ball. And the other thing too is like, if you don't want Gavin Sheets in the outfield, there's ways to get him at bats still. Right? There's, he could play first base, he could DH.
Yep.
I know you're going to be switching some guys around, but like, I'd rather have Jake Marisnick take those innings in the outfield than Romy Gonzalez. I just would. Like, he's just a better outfielder. We know it.
Right. So, it's obvious.
I don't get his purpose on this team. Like, I don't see. And wait, can he catch? Are they considering him as backup catcher?
Maybe that's his skill. He's got a hidden trait that we got. Well, and Pedro came out and said Hanser Alberto was going to get the second base reps. So I think maybe that's part of the plan, Treasy. Maybe it's like, well, if we're dedicating the second base reps to Alberto while Andrus is down, we don't want to bring Sosa up here and have no use for him.
Let him get the reps at Charlotte where he already crushes and like won't learn anything. That's the same thing with Colas. Like having like Marisnick up or Hazley even and not Colas. It's like, what's he learning down there? Well,
right.
Like what? Why are we doing this? We'll get to that later. But it just blows my mind.
It's strange. All right. Next up on the question list. My guy, I've had much criticism over a long time. Been pretty quiet during the regular season. He's had a decent start, but right now he's a little bit on the struggle bus. Andrew Vaughn, in the month of May, he has a 57 WRC plus. Treasy, that's a slash line of 196, 250, 333. He's grounded into 5 double plays and 56 plate appearances in May. So that's in 2 weeks right there. So far, it's been brutal for Andrew Vaughn in May. Is it time to move him down in the lineup a little bit? Give him a little reprieve out of the top 2-3 spots?
I think so, but not that far down. And the thing is, like, there's still a lot of guys that suck in this lineup. So it's not, you don't want to put them, you're not put them to the bottom of the lineup. But you got to think, if you went 1 through 4 with like, you go like Timmy, Yohan, Luis, Berger, right? That's a reasonable 1 through 4 at this point, the way these guys are hitting. You might even flip-flop Yohan and Luis. But, like, you put those guys up at the top, and then you put him 5th. And, like, at least you're going to have less scenarios where he's a double play problem.
Right.
Right? Like, so, because if Berger hits the ball, it goes 700 feet. So, like, he's generally clearing the bases before you get up. Yeah. But I think that's a fine spot for him to be in. And I don't think Andrew Vaughn batting 5th is some like diss to him. It's like
right, and
it's a power hitter spot, right?
That's right.
If Pedro Grifol was throwing against you, he'd make Reynaldo Lopez take those reps. Like
he would, yes.
Yeah, so like that's a spot where I think that it's a reasonable place that you're not really punishing him, but you're taking a little bit of the pressure off of him of always having a guy on first. Like he's just seemingly always coming up with a guy on first, and it's like, dude. Guy hits hard ground balls.
Right.
It's a bad combination.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't run well. It's not his. I don't get charged up about the grounding into double plays, but I know a lot of people do, and that's why I put it in the stat line. It's just like to make people aware of it. And it felt like I'd seen a bunch of them recently. Like he had hit a hard ground ball when a guy's on base, and then
first and third, and he hits a slow one back to the pitcher that like you're like. Anyone would beat this out except for Yaz and Andrew, and like, well, he's there. But Beef, you know what? This is not the Andrew I'm worried about dropping in the lineup.
Bring it on. Tell me.
Benintendi needs to be about 11 spots lower in the lineup.
He's so bad.
It's fucking. I'm like he's got to start being good just to shove it in my face. because I don't think anyone's going harder at this than me, because I just cannot stand this signing. Like I just
Sean Anderson also not a big fan from CHQ.
Well, you know what's funny is like I defended
big
Sean before the season because he was like, dude doesn't pull the ball. And everyone's like, don't worry, he's going to start pulling the ball. Why would you think he's going to start pulling the ball when he didn't in Yankee Stadium? In Yankee Stadium.
Because of reasons.
He chose not
reasons.
to. No, he just can't. Like, it's just the thing. So, like, yeah, I need him batting like ninth at this point.
He's been absolutely brutal. Let's get to a drink here. Baloney, thanks so much. He says, apologies for being late, but I'm here. Cheers.
Cheers, Baloney.
Thank you. Cheers, Baloney. Baloney put up a little video, Chorizy.
My fellow defender of the week.
I was gonna say, you saw that video, right? Where he split it. He had the video of him intercepting the Crustable that was supposed to go to Jason, and then he put right afterwards, "You blocking my shot." It's your first block of the year in the hot tub on Sunday.
Luckily, we play in different leagues, so we were both defender of the week. It was good.
That's absolutely right. All right, next up is Pedro Grafal put it out there, Chorizy, and it still exists right now. The White Sox rotation for the week worth of games, the midweek against Cleveland, are all TBA. And he said they may make some changes here. So what structural changes would you like to see the White Sox make right now? What things, if you're thinking outside the box or even just making small adjustments, what would you like to see them adjust with the starting rotation?
So when I saw this, Beef, I thought to myself, are they going to IL Lynn? Because this would be a perfect scenario to do it, right? He's been rough. He probably needs a little bit of time. You skip him in the rotation. You go Clevenger next, right?
Yep.
But what you can do is bring up an extra reliever, right? Like, so you could bring up Tanner Banks, who can eat some innings. And, like, they're not even throwing Nick Padilla. Like, they brought him up, and they're just like,
right.
Yeah, don't do anything.
Just sit there.
So having that extra bullpen arm, you could do some interesting stuff, especially a lefty. You could, you pitch Clevenger. Maybe you start Tanner Banks the next day in front of Kopech, right? Like, and have Kopech still throws. You just use Banks like an opener.
Just open.
Takes a little pressure off Kopech. You get, if you get 4 or 5 innings out of Kopech after 2 innings of Banks, you're in a good spot there, right? So,
absolutely.
I think that you could do something like that, and then you don't have to even deal with Lynn's spot for a while, right? And then maybe you bring up Sean Burke, and you send down Padilla, and like you can do something like that and turn over a few times, and then bring Lynn back if he's feeling up to it. But that's where my thought immediately went. But like I mean, I definitely think whatever they're looking at doing, it's a Lance Lynn thing. I don't think it's a Michael Kopech going to the bullpen thing. I don't think that they have enough pitchers to accomplish something like that.
Yeah, I don't think they're ready for that either. I like your idea about the opener. You've been bringing this up for a couple weeks right now, and I think Michael Kopech is probably the guy primed to receive the opener. I mean, I think situationally you could probably do the same thing with Clevenger, like put an opener in front of him. He hasn't been terrible, but there's some matchups like that are pretty rough on him, like where maybe it would help to have him miss the top of the lineup at least one of the times through, so that you can kind of stretch him a little bit. But Kopech seems primed for it. Kopech is like down to one pitch, basically. The slider hasn't been shit, and it's mostly just been fastball. And it's like, if he's going to be reliever Kopech, maybe you put an opener in front of him, and you see how long he can last. And if he only gets to the 5th inning after the opener, well, tough. You got to kind of move on from that. But you do it based on effectiveness.
And I think that the Tanner Banks Kopech difference is greater than the Tanner Banks Clevenger difference, because Clevenger just can't throw that hard anymore. So like, I think if you're looking at it and going like, what is drastically different when 2 pitchers out there, it's gonna be those 2. And like, so it's going to be harder for a batter to say like, okay, second time through the order, well, now this guy's coming in like a reliever, throwing smoke. Like, it's a good, I think it's a good situation for Kopech, and it could get him back on track, So like, I don't know. I'd like to think that the Sox are in Grafal are forward thinking enough to go like, this makes sense. And it doesn't make sense to put him in the bullpen because you just do not have guys waiting to come up and pitch. Like, there's just not there. Davis Martin's hurt. The rest of the guys in Charlotte are giving up 20 runs a game, right? Like, I mean, like you could attribute some of that to Charlotte, right? Just like the way we attribute some of like Sosa and Colossus' success down there is it's
to
Charlotte.
the ballpark. Yeah, it's just a great hitter's ballpark. Exactly.
But at some point, it's like, you know, if the games are 25-20, I'm not going like, well, this is the guy that's going to push Michael out of the rotation. Like, it's just not. It's not the case, right? Like, so you will see one of those guys if there's an injury.
Yeah, well, and you had that situation last year when they brought Davis Martin up. His ERA down there was worse than it was when he came up. Now, his ERA got dragged because in that final start of the season when he got hurt, they let him in there too long. He gave a bunch of runs, and it kind of screwed up his season-long stats in the MLB. But like he got better when he came up. So the run environment is such that it is in AAA, especially in that ballpark in Charlotte, that it's brutal. It's tough. Treasy, one more thing on the opener here. Well,
One
first,
thing real quick. I
ahead.
felt like that last start for Davis Martin, Rick Hahn called down to the dugout and was like, yo, I might have to go to arbitration with this guy at some point. Let him wear it. I need this ERs.
Give me that money back. Let's get to this comment real quick. HBIC's our championship window now requires an opener, the Rick Hahn special. Look, Tampa uses an opener twice a week right now because they've had a little bit of injuries and ineffectiveness with their pitchers. It's just something that you should be able to go to if you need to. And right now, Michael Kopech ain't getting it done. And it would be nice if you could like pull a lever here and give yourself a shot. So I don't mind it, although obviously you would love for the starters to all be going 7 innings and kicking ass here. Treasy, one more thing on the opener. How do you feel about Aaron Bummer taking one of those, taking the opener spot occasionally? He's had a little bit of a rebound. His last couple outings have been pretty good, especially when he's gone in with a clean inning. So what do you think about using him in that spot?
So I don't hate it, but here's what I've been noticing with Bummer is that they've changed the way that they're using him. And so he's only going, like, he's legit only going like 10 pitches.
Yeah, he's a
three batter situation, and they're just like, this is what I like. Grifol only seems comfortable with that. So I think that would disqualify him from being an opener, but it seems like it might be working. And which is why I would think, you know, if we're going to bring up someone to be an opener, it's probably a guy like Banks where you could go, or Schultens. Like, I wouldn't be opposed
someone
to
has a little bit of length
either,
you know.
where you could, if he's going good, this guy might get 2-3 innings, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the only thing about Bummer. It just doesn't seem like they want that to be the situation right now. Like, I don't feel like Grifol's comfortable with that.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate here. Let's get to a couple drinks. Jeff Chester says, as a bass player, happy 515, Treasy.
Oh, cheers.
Get the bass players in the crowd. Love it. And then longtime guy Nathan Chiba says, this is to start a Kickstart Go Blow Me page for Teflon Han in the hope he'll be persuaded to quit. We can raise $100 more. Jewel 2 points coupons count. Thank you, Nathan. Bless
Cheers,
you.
Nathan.
Appreciate you. Nathan Chiba. I love Nathan Chiba. He's the best.
I love 2 deep cuts in a row.
That's good, right? Those are good comments. Appreciate you guys. Next up on the list, Treasy, is something that's upset me yesterday. We didn't go to the game. We got together with our folks and we had a nice Mother's Day celebration. It's hanging out. We had some delicious Lawrence's, which is sponsored to the One Way Podcast, and the food is always terrific, and everyone had a great time eating Lawrence's like we always do. One thing I noticed in the game yesterday is that Pedro Grifol is batting our known best hitter, Luis Robert, 5th, our best player. And then, coming off of injury, a guy who was killing the ball before the injury and has a pedigree of being a great hitter in Jake Berger, 7th. Now, of course, both of these guys produced yesterday, but they're hitting in these weird spots. Why the fuck are they batting 5th and 7th, Treasy?
I don't know. It's like, I get, like, okay, well, Berger just came back from injury. You don't want to, like, force him into something. No, but they put you on right in the midst of it. Like when he came back from injury, these guys hit. Put the hitters up at the top, man. If you look at what the good teams do, right? Because we've been talking about this. We actually were talking about this during the World Baseball Classic because this was a typical scenario. Teams have 4 or 5 really good hitters, and they just stack them at the front. Yeah. And like then they hope for luck out of the back end. Those guys are going to get less at bats over the course of the season, right? Yeah. Like, so stack those guys up, man. Stack the good hitters at the front. I don't know why I'm having to tell Pedro Grifol this. You're a fucking professional manager. I'm an asshole drinking whiskey on a Monday. Like, you should know this. I shouldn't know this. Like, why am I having to tell you this? And even like, just speed-wise, this all makes sense, right? Like, Yohan and Luis should be right behind Timmy.
Right.
This is, if you are actually going to try and steal a base again this year, I don't know if they're going to. These are the three guys to do it. Yep. So, like, I don't get why they aren't right at the top of the lineup. And then Berger, he's been clubbing. Let him hit cleanup, man. You didn't want him on the roster. He showed you he needs to be on the roster. Now you don't want him to bat in the top 4. He's showing you he needs to be in the top 4.
Yeah.
Just stop prejudging this guy and just let him rake.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It is prejudging. Is your predisposition to this guy doesn't belong on the roster. Now he came up and hit a ton of everything. Just put the guys in the best position to succeed. And I'm with you. I'm not a lineup nit. I've never been this guy's got a bad here, whatever. But just like you said, best hitters towards the front, worst hitters towards the back. It's a real simple methodology. You don't even have to get the lineup perfectly right statistically to do it that way. You're like 95% of the way there. Just do it like that.
And I can tell you, you don't even have to be sober to come up with that. I can prove that right now.
That's absolutely right. Next up here, the White Sox bullpen's been looking better the last couple of weeks. And I even looked it up, actually. They have a 390 FIP in May, which puts them as 12th in the majors. So not great, but still top half of the league in May after the absolutely atrocious start. How are you lining up this bullpen? What's your A bullpen looking like, Chorizy? When you got leverage, who do you need out there?
Well, you know what's interesting, Beef, is that I think Kendall Graveman is settling into that closer role nicely. And I am still of the mind we need to give Liam just as much time as he needs, man.
Agreed.
Like, I do not want to see him rushed back. I saw him throwing 94 the other day. Like, that's not Liam. Let him get back to being Liam. I can't wait to see him. Like, I can't wait till he's here. But don't rush him. Right. Don't rush him. And it seems like Graveman's settling into that role. I think Joe Kelly's looked good, man. I think Joe Kelly's looked pretty damn good. I would like to see him in some more high leverage situations. I think one thing, Beef, or two things real quick. One, stop trying to go handed. Like, don't worry about it. Right. Just don't worry about it. You've got some guys that could come in and get outs no matter what hand the person is hitting, right?
Yep.
Like, so use Joe Kelly in some of those situations. Use Middleton in some of those situations. And then the second thing is stop using Raylo in those situations. Like, not because he can't do it, just for his fucking mental health. Because if you look at Raylo's splits, they're unbelievably tough for him to be successful. Like, it's like something like he's faced like 79 batters, and 46 of them have been in high leverage situations.
Yeah.
The majority, and this is like almost all the hitters he's faced are batters 2 through 6. Like, it's hardly any other batters. Like, you are like, I like Raylo. I want him to succeed. You are setting him up for failure if you're just going like, just every time the worst situation possible comes up, put Raylo in. Right. Like, that's not right. Like,
you're right. He's
not that good. Like, he's good. He's a good pitcher, but he's running him out there like he's just like gonna be like Aroldis Chapman in his heyday, right? Like, and it's just like this is not who he is. He's good. He could throw 100 miles per hour, but he can't get out every best hitter on every best team in the worst situation possible.
Right. He's not prime Dylan Betances or prime Josh Hader or whatever, where it's just like, whoever the best hitters are, that's who we want to put in there. And Grifal's been using him that way unfairly. You're right. He hasn't gotten a chance to blow away 7, 8, and 9 with 100 miles an hour just to sit everyone down for a nice quiet inning. He's been in the chaos kind of the entire time. I agree with you on Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly is their best reliever right now, in my opinion. Like, if there's a tough situation, he's who I want in there. Right behind him is my man Gregory Santos. He's been terrific. And the slider's tough, and like he just looks like, man, you really did find something here. You find him with him and Middleton, where you built a traditional bullpen. You kind of found these guys, little trade, scrap heap or whatever, and you kind of pulled some stuff together here. It is, in a way, a little bit promising in a season where not much is going right for this team, that they were able to kind of piece together some of these parts. And I really like him. I think used properly, like you mentioned, Graveman is starting to settle in. And Graveman's been incredibly tough against lefties, Trees. You're mentioning guys who get out lefties. Graveman has been killing left-handed hitters out of the bullpen. So they got those guys. They don't need to worry about the handedness.
You named 4 guys already, right? Like that are they're doing very well. Like mix it up, right? Like this is an opportunity for Grifol to have a little upper hand against the guys he's managing against, right? They don't know who he's going to put in against his good players in these high leverage situations. So just mix it up. If there's lefties coming up, they shouldn't expect Aaron Bummer to come out. Like they should be like, I don't know who's going to come out, and I don't know how to set my lineup. I don't know what to tell these guys until the guy comes out of the bullpen, right? Like have multiple guys warming up at the same time, dude.
Exactly.
Be a little bit. To have some gamemanship.
Creative. Yeah, exactly. Be a little creative. You're right. Have some gamesmanship. Be a little bit creative. Be the type of manager that keeps the other ones off balance. They haven't really done that. He hasn't found his sea legs yet to be able to do any of that. So I agree with you, Treasy, 100%. Next question. Why have the White Sox completely stopped stealing bases? I checked this morning. The White Sox are 22 out of 24 stealing. That means they're 22 successful, only 2 unsuccessful. That's bottom 5. I remember when I looked at the beginning of week 2, the White Sox were 13 out of 13. They were perfect, and they were top 5 in stealing bases. What's happened in that month plus where they just stopped running completely?
So I think a lot of it has to do with Timmy. So I don't think Timmy's fully healthy. I think he's getting there because he's starting to hit again. Like he roped that ball at the end of the game yesterday. He had the 3-hit game the other night.
Yeah.
Like he's starting to look back to health, but like when he got thrown out on that double the other night, like we know Timmy stands up on that play normally, right? Like he doesn't even, there's not even close.
There's no throw.
But so there's obviously something still a little bit messed up there. So he's not running. Billy Hamilton's on the IL. The one that worries me the most out of it, like is probably Luis. Because I don't know why Luis isn't running, right? Like that's a guy that, like, I mean, sometimes he just has to trot around the bases because he's just hitting 500-foot home runs. But when he is on base, it doesn't look like that's in the repertoire right now.
Right.
And it's like, why? Like that worries me. Yohan, I don't know, guy might need a backiotomy, and he's still out there playing.
It'd be okay if he doesn't run. That's fine with me.
But I'd be, I think those are the 3 guys, right? Like those are the 3 guys at the top of the lineup that you want running. Andrew Benintendi might be able to run if he ever got on base, but he doesn't.
I was gonna say, that's the main problem. If Benintendi, like you were talking about, put Benintendi in the back of the lineup. I mean, there's probably some utility to putting Benintendi first if he could get on base again, and then letting him run. Just let him run because he has to get 5 steals this year. I mean, it's not like he still doesn't run. He's 5 for 5. He's absolutely perfect. He just doesn't get on base. You're right.
Beef, you know what though I want to see? And here's my dream scenario here that I want Gavin Sheets to start running. Do you remember?
I love it.
Do you remember when Adam Dunn was with the Reds?
Yeah, he'd get like 10 stolen bases.
He'd get like 10 or 11 stolen bases every year because they weren't really paying attention to him, and he was sneaky quick.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
I think Sheets is fast enough that like if the pitcher's not really paying attention and there's not really a chance of them throwing over and the bases are bigger and all of the things have come together, that he needs the Adam Dunn 10 steals per year. Like I want to see it. Like,
can we put Berger on this plan too? Berger's got pretty good sprint speed from what I was looking at Baseball Savant. He's got decent sprint speed. You want the fat guys to run. Fat guys running is what you want.
That's another guy that they would have no idea is going to do it, right? I think you could get away with this a little bit at the beginning, right? Yeah. And then like, if it starts working and they have to start throwing over and they have to worry about Sheets and Berger, like that's great. Like I want that. I want the pitcher to go like, I don't want this fucking guy to steal a base on me. Like I just can't have it. Like I want that in the pitcher's head. So like I want Sheets to run. And I didn't even know about Berger's sprint speed, but now that I heard about
above average. Yeah,
let's run. Let's run, baby.
I want to. Yeah, we always talk about the full house outfield. Fuck that. Let's have the fat guys run. We're having fat guys stealing bases. I love it.
You know how you avoid Andrew Vaughn double plays? Steal second.
That's right. Get second still. Absolutely right. Last question, Treasy. The White Sox are 14 and 28 right now. Where's our upside? How do we get back? How are we going to get back? Because I know a lot of fans are like, season's over, whatever. But I know you and I are going to be our asses are going to be in the seats. We're going to be watching this whole 162. How do we get back? How do we get some enjoyment out of this year? Who's going to help us get back there?
All right, man. So if we're thinking about this mathematically, they got to go about 76-44. That's going to be real tough. That's going to be real tough.
That is going to be tough.
And I don't think they got the trade capital to get Ohtani. So I don't know how they're going to do it. But
that's right.
I do think if we're still in this kind of position a week or two from now, man, like I got to see Sosa and Colas up, right? Like I got to start seeing like
agreed
some of these young guys and see what they can do, right? I don't like having Colas in AAA learning nothing. Well, we just, trot anyone out in the outfield, right? So, like, right. I think I want to start seeing those guys come up. And I think, like, if we're out of it, we're out of it, right? Like, there's not much I could do about it. I want to start seeing those guys. I want to see what they can do. I want to see Garrett Crochet come back. And if Garrett Crochet is looking good, like, I want him to close sometimes.
Yeah,
right? Or I want him to be the 8th inning guy. A lot, right? Like I want to see what do we have in these guys, right? Like so that's where I'm going to be looking if it gets real bad. But there's always that chance. There's always that chance that they rip off a few games or the Twins and Guardians just start to suck. Like
they're already not that great.
Then things start to get a little tighter and you're just like, well, maybe it only takes 66 wins to get this division. But I mean, like it's a big uphill battle. I talked about it in the Soak yesterday. I'm already in the mindset of like I'm watching one game at a time, treating it as a single entertainment product. But at the same time, if we're starting to get out of it, I need to see some of the young guys. Like I don't want to see Hanser Alberto.
Yeah,
right. I don't want to. I like Gavin Sheets. Seems like an awesome dude, but I don't want to see him, right? Like, because that's not our future unless I see him at first base. Right. And you're telling me something different, right? But like,
something else happened.
He doesn't need to be in the outfield if that's the case. I need Colas out there. Like, that's just the way I'm thinking about it. Like, if we're not going to win, I need to see what next year looks like.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I actually have invested my entire plan into Eloy Jimenez comes back early from the injury, and he hits the tar out of the ball like he did in the second half last year. That's my recovery plan. We're going to get back. The offense will get back. And it's almost all resting on his shoulders. So you get Jake looking like he's looking and Luis looking like he's looking, along with Eloy. And Eloy staying healthy is like you need a total mitzvah. Like that's a real offense now. Now you got the real offense back, but you haven't had it. You just haven't had these guys. Luis has been carrying everything, and you can't depend on anyone else in the lineup. Now hopefully Jake is back to 100% and he could be fine. But, like, I'm all looking at offense. Like, this team has got to be much better on offense. That's where they were supposed to be solid. All the concerns and the projections were on the starting pitching. And they're all coming true.
And there's nothing to bring up from the starting pitching, right? Like, so there's nothing to see there, right? There's nothing that I could see. I will say this, Beef, if Eloy comes back and hits 30 home runs, we're getting me, you, and my son, we're getting appendectomies. Elective surgery.
Just get it done.
In solidarity.
I love it. We'll sign a scar on his abdomen. Chorizy, thanks so much for helping me answer 8 White Sox questions I had on my mind. Remember, we're not trying to be right on the show. We're just trying to understand. You have anything you want to plug specifically? Anything you want to talk about or say or tell me?
No, you know when we're on, man. We're on. We're going to be on Thursday night, of course, live as always. I'm looking forward to those all throughout the summer, and I think late it's probably going to be. Well, actually, I don't know when from a Southside point of view is coming back because I don't know if the series that are coming up are actually going to get done because there's a writer's strike. So
shit, that's right.
So we'll see. But cheers, Beef. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
always
thanks
always
for coming
a pleasure.
On. Bless you. Appreciate you. And I'll talk to you soon, probably shortly after this broadcast ends. Take care. That was Chorizy-E. I want to thank him for coming on there. Next week's guest is Matt Zawaski. He's returning to the show next week. We're going to talk a little shop. We'll talk a little White Sox like we usually do. Thanks again to Chorizy-E. Thanks to all of the 108 family that was up in the YouTube comments. Appreciate you smashing the like button, comments, and of course the drinks. Thanks so much. Tune in on Thursday, 108 Podcast, 8 p.m. Central Time. Thanks, goodbye, and I love you.